waiting. Moment. 5:33. Y'all ignore me? Is that what's happening? What? Right. Okay. Just a few more moments. Okay, thank you everyone for your patience. It's about 5:34, so we're going to get started. Everyone comfortable? Okay, I am going to try. If you can hear my voice, clap once. Thank you for that, Dr. Miller. Okay, we're going to get started. Tom, are we on? Are we live? Oh, we're here. We're doing this. Okay, so we are going to start the ESA, the Equity and Student Achievement Committee of the Whole, this evening on January 17th. I'm going to start by taking a look here. We don't have any speakers for this evening. I want to start with a review and acceptance of the minutes for the December 13th, 2022 ESA meeting. Motion? Second. All in favor for acceptance of the minutes for the December ESA committee? Aye. Okay, thank you. And we're going to jump right in. It looks like we have a short agenda this evening, and we're going to hear some updates from the teaching and learning regarding curriculum instruction and assessment, attendance, and chronic absenteeism. So we're going to have Shani Keelan is going to join us here at the podium and provide those updates at this time. Thank you, Shani.
Okay, we're good. Good evening, board members, president, vice president, staff that are present, and those watching from the community, parents, students, or staff on any of our streaming. So starting off the Equity and Student Achievement meeting tonight, we always start with our guiding principles. Those being that every child deserves to engage with grade level content every day. Our students must engage with high quality, culturally responsive experiences where they are affirmed, seen, and valued. And we have an obligation to provide equitable experiences to every student across the district, no matter what zip code or where they live or go to school. Aligning that in teaching and learning, we talk about curriculum instruction and assessment all the time. So in curriculum is where we live with our grade level standards and the programs adopted by the district and board to instruct using those grade level standards. Instruction are the instructional strategies that shall engage all students, affirm all students so they are seen, heard, and valued. And under assessment, that's us ensuring we're measuring that curriculum instruction are meaningful and we're analyzing student work and assessments using data-wise protocols to understand that we understand what students have learned and what they still need to learn. So under curriculum this evening, just a couple quick updates, and some of these have been posted, but we are still working on releasing dated materials and getting rid of dated curriculum and materials. That is a process that is ongoing by following legal guidelines and processes. We are also daily getting in skids of Amplify Science and getting that out to schools so that at the very crack of Q3 we can start full implementation for 2 units this year. Under instruction, talking about multi-tiered system of support, using multiple measures used for academic intervention, And some of this comes up in policy committee as well, under policy 4206. The district has an obligation to discuss its RTI process, response to intervention, and academic intervention services. So there is another document linked in to board docs for you this evening that spells out explicitly multiple measures, but this really is us ensuring that we have effective tier 1 core instruction, that we're screening all students for if there's a necessity to have any interventions, that we're actually implementing targeted interventions, progress monitoring, and for repeating that cycle with assessments and data to figure out and ensure that we're meeting all students' needs. So the multiple measures we use as a district are iReady, iStation, common formative assessments, lesson embedded assessments, NICE slot for ELL students or English language learners, last links in grades 1 through 12 for speaking and listening, and we'll get into that a little bit later, and then school-based approved assessments at grade level, unit and lesson assessments, and then science pre and post assessments for K-5. We're adding that piece in this year. So slides up there are going a little bit faster than me. And we're on assessments. Tonight we're going to speak of Brigance, IXL, which is given to Algebra 1, and last links. So first, Brigance is given to all pre-K students in our district, pre-K 3 and pre-K 4. It's also given to all kindergarten students who come to us new that did not attend our pre-K 3 or pre-K 4 program, and also any kindergarten student who scored a level 1 or 2 on the pre-K 4 assessment.
Just a point of clarification, Madam Chairperson. Can Chief Shawnee tell the community what Brigance is and what does it measure?
Yep, sure. Brigance is an assessment selected as the district's new entrance screening tool. So any new student into the district takes this assessment.
Any student, because I see the focus is on kindergarten. Is it kindergarten? Is it for any student that comes in?
There are cases where we give it to students who are not in pre-K and K as requested, but typically if we get a student into the district from another district or another state, we get some data and some files with them. So we don't always need to do this new student screener. So this is really pretty specific to vision, hearing, motor, language, cognitive development, social emotional development, and then determining needs or giftedness.
Yeah, I'm just trying to distinguish. Is it specifically for pre-K and K, or is it for high school students as well?
No, typically it's for like brand new students as they're young. There are cases, I think, where there are students who are older who maybe didn't attend school, or maybe there was a student who was supposed to start kinder or first grade during COVID, and they're just coming to us now in second or third and haven't stepped foot in a public school. Those may be students that would be candidates for a Brigance.
But you wouldn't give it to a ninth grader is what I'm trying to clarify.
Right, yes.
Okay.
Commissioner,
No,
President
there's
Elliott, it's for
other
the
screeners,
standard
yeah.
entry-level student coming in as a brand-new child, like kindergarten and pre-K.
Kindergarten, but
as you
not
said,
the other
yes.
kid. Yeah, I just want to clarify it, that I'm getting it.
Yeah, so, and so it's most of our district is for 3, 4, and 5-year-olds where we give the screener. Can be at any age if the student has not been screened previously. Typically when we receive a student, they have some sort of screener that they bring to the table with them that we get in their CUME file.
All right, thank you.
So on the next slide, you'll see some of the things I already talked about, that it's a developmental screener. It assesses the child's readiness. We give it in all pre-K 3 programs and pre-K 4 programs. We also give it to our kinders who are new, who did not attend our pre-K program, and any kinder student who scored a level 1 or 2, it's out of a 4-point scale. So if they have scored a level 1 or 2, we reassess them in kinder. So 236 kindergarten students were reassessed from pre-K from a level 1 or 2. 735 students did not receive the assessment in pre-K, so they were new students to us out of the 1,240 kindergarten students. 924 kindergarten students took the assessment in the fall. So you'll see on the next slide, this is where the scale 1, 2, 3, 4 falls.
Commissioner.
Okay, so what we're going to do, I'm going to take you, Commissioner Patterson, and then as we go, I want to allow you to get through a portion of the presentation, and then we'll pause for some questions so that we keep it seamless. But I want to acknowledge your hand at this time.
That's okay, I'll wait if you want.
Go ahead.
Okay, so going back to the last screen, so what this is indicating that 65.8% of the kids are at level 1.
Yes, so of the kindergarten students
Yes.
who took the assessment in the fall,
Yep.
65.8% are at a level 1. And so those are students who may have attended pre-K who were already previously tested at a level 1 and are in need of support, or they could be brand new to the district and this is the first time getting a screening and our first time seeing them in school, right? So we haven't had a chance to do any teaching, a lot of interventions. None of those things have taken place yet.
All right, so just for clarification for the community and for myself too, level 1 and level 2 are levels that they're failing. They're not at that grade level, that kindergarten level.
Right.
They're not even coming in at that level if they
Correct.
have a 1 or 2.
Yes.
So
and
really, it's more like.
And could be in areas of vision, hearing, motor, language, cognitive development, and social development.
This is about readiness for school, right? This isn't multiple grade levels below, this is readiness and a bunch of criteria from fine motor skills to hearing, vision, a bunch of different areas. This isn't that, that they're behind grade levels, right? And so then learning and monitoring is adjusted based on this. This is information, this is baseline screening information.
Yes, so from there.
Yep, I just want to make sure that people aren't saying that our kindergartners are entering multiple grade levels below because they're not at a grade level,
There's no
right?
grade
It's
level,
just,
so-
it's a screening process for readiness of kindergarten.
So developmental screening,
Yep, absolutely.
basically. So your pediatrician, so if you're looking outside systemically, if we are proactively getting kids assessed with their pediatrician, those type of things are already monitored. And then again, to echo what's been expressed, this is developmental to see the baseline which the child is working so that you can provide the skills and tools to get them ready if they are demonstrating lack.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, it's an entrance screener, and it gives us really good information about what to do with our students moving forward.
I'm going to be coming back to that after, yeah.
Okay. So the next slide moves into IXL data for Algebra 1. IXL, the district put an RFP out last year for interventions for high school math and high school literacy. This was purchased as an intervention program. Typically, Algebra 1 is a gatekeeper for students graduating on time. And historically, not only here, but across the nation, has been a place where we know we need all students to be able to pass Algebra 1 in order to be able to move through and graduate on time. So that's why the focus is here. So all students taking algebra for the first time take this assessment. Students in Algebra Geo Blend or Algebra Online Credit Recovery also use it, but they use it as a standards-based action plan, and it gives them data and information about what they have already learned from the Algebra 1 course and what they still need to learn. Right now, of all Algebra 1 students, 59.21% of students took this first diagnostic in MOI. This is a brand new assessment for us. So we're still learning the assessment, but also learning how to read the reports and what's coming in. This was a last minute report I pulled at the end of day Friday. This supports intervention with both providing teachers with students missing core math skills and data on a standards-based action plan to help drive their instruction. The good news here is that of our 8th grade Algebra 1 students who take algebra, 97% of them completed this diagnostic, so it gives us a really good picture of where they're at to meet needs and actually meet and pass the Regents exam for Algebra 1.
So, please go ahead and continue, and then I'm going to pause.
You can pause. I'm going to a next assessment next, so
Okay.
we want to pause here.
Perfect. So while we're here, I did hear that there were some questions.
Yeah.
Vice President LeBron?
Yeah. I want to go back to slide 8 on this, on the presentation on my screen, which is back to the conversation. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I don't know what's happening, but
Yeah.
it's coming.
Yeah, Tom's working on it. So we're having some IT issues, but we're going to continue. The 65.8% scoring at level 1. So I just have to put this out there, both in transparency and real lived experience right now, is that my grandson falls under this level 1 here. And what happens next? Like, no one can answer, and unfortunately, it is not the pediatricians who do the evaluations. What they say is, oh, there's a flag here for early assessment or early interventions, and if you're not enrolled in pre-K, as a parent, you just kind of sit there with that piece of paper figuring out, what does this mean? Because I'm not connected to a early child care center or a preschool program or a school. So I sit there with that form for a year. This really happened. Like, you just sit there because you think somehow someone's going to call you about this referral that the doctor made. This is like my pet peeve with all of these systems that really are impactful to our people, our families, our kids, and they just do not communicate with one another, and then we don't share with parents what happens next. So, okay, my child is in this level 1, and let me just say, these numbers, especially we're talking about 3- and 4-year-olds who really were born and being raised in their infancy through COVID and lockdowns. So there was a lack of social skills and just human interaction that they did not receive, which is going to 65.8%, like the entire community should be alarmed that we're talking about babies all coming in with some form of need or evaluation, or the majority. But I do want to acknowledge the impact that COVID had on newborns, and COVID had on 1-year-olds and 2-year-olds who were isolated from the entire world, depending on how severe their families also isolated them, right? So for my daughter, she didn't want nobody around. So what happens next? Can you walk me through? You have this evaluation. What happens to that 3- and 4-year-old that needs speech or services or motor skills or physical therapy? How long is the process to get an evaluation? And then what happens internally at the district if they're coming in needing these services transitioning into kindergarten? Thank you.
So there's a lot to your statement, and I'm going to try to be pretty succinct in answering. But so the first thing is part of what I talked about earlier with multiple measures. This is one measure. The teacher has classroom assessments and daily observations. There's other things they're doing within the classroom to see what students are doing or not doing. The other service personnel in the building are also doing evals on vision, hearing screenings, and those pieces to see, is it a true issue here with vision? Do we need to get glasses? Do we need to get the child to see somebody about their hearing? All of those other pieces. And then very often, multiple layers of support are put in. I have been in almost every kindergarten classroom at this point across the district, and there's usually at least 2 adults in every classroom, and the same in pre-Ks, 2 or 3 or 4. But getting students what they need and being able to communicate that. So per that policy 4206 and the multiple measures that we talked about before with response to intervention, parents should be notified if students need an intervention outside of the classroom, and or if there's something happening in the classroom to really get them what they need. And then there's a process, right? We implement those interventions, a timeline, 4 to 6 weeks typically. Then there's an update on progress monitoring. If the school gets to a point where they're not seeing progress, which very often in K1, K1-2 we do, because sometimes the students haven't been to school yet, or they haven't been socialized because they were at home, and especially during COVID, right, and the impacts of that. So very often by the time they come to school, they actually start to flourish very quickly, right, because they're at that developmental place to do so. But that's kind of the process. Committee on Special Ed, typically we want to see the data run and that we've actually done intervention, we've done good teaching and learning, we've done good interventions, we have data to show that there's a lack of progress. If students are showing progress, you're not going to just go straight to an IEP or special ed eval either. You're going to continue to test out, do they need other interventions in other areas? This is a pretty comprehensive screener in multiple areas for a new student in development coming in at 3, 4, or 5 years old. So I would think that the schools through that process are reaching out to families if they see a need for more support and more intervention, and what interventions are actually occurring, so they're notified. And if parents so think, because they have a physician referral or anything, they should indicate to the school that they would like to have a committee on special education review and submit that in writing.
Sorry, can I just respond real quick? So I hear you, and that sounds great, but the reality is that I knew enrolling my grandson at school too, and so let me just say I love school too, and we love the preschool staff, the whole team, they're wonderful. But we knew coming in that he was going to need speech based on that pediatrician's remarks a year prior, and we're still waiting to hear back on any form of evaluation. We all know, we all are in agreement, the teachers, Mom, myself, we had this conversation, we put an email in writing, which was what we were told to do, is to have my daughter make the request, and I had her do that. So I just have to say that because this is my experience, and it's a struggle, and it's a fight, and I'm a commissioner, I'm the vice president. Not that that means anything, but I'm just saying, I, who know you all, who work with you day in and day out, who have access to you, and I still can't get my grandson to be evaluated. And I just have to say, this is his experience. There are others in the class with similar stories. We've shared those stories with each other. I just have to say, like, if this is my struggle and I have all these privileges, I can't imagine for the parent who just simply doesn't know that that their child even needs speech, because they may not even understand that that's something that exists out there. So I just had to say that, and I just feel like we need to do better. And it sounds good what you're saying, but that's not my reality lived right now in 22-23 school year. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to take a
Note
couple
taken,
of the
and
questions.
I will follow up.
Okay, yeah, and maybe along with the follow-up can be what the scheduled plan is that should be captured among all schools for the follow-up that Vice President expressed. I'm going to go to Commissioner Malloy, and after Commissioner Malloy, I'll take you, Commissioner Adams, sir.
Thank you. I just wanted to tell Vice President LeBron, you hit the nail on the head. I know 2 of my 4 children required early intervention services for some pretty severe speech delays when they were in pre-K. And I'm in education, right? So I was able to navigate the system and use my own resources. Their father is in education, and so we were able to navigate the referral process and get the services that our children required. I'm wondering, though, like, how does this data compare to our prior years? Is there a way that we can get prior year data? Because certainly COVID would have had an impact on these numbers, and I'm just interested in knowing what, if there's the 5-year trend.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Can you put that in the question log, just so I can
Sure.
remember to follow up on it? And
Okay.
we will bring that back, or send you, put it in the superintendent's memo.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, Commissioner Adams?
Okay, I didn't really have nothing, but I'm gonna ask this anyway. Could we look at some of our old data on lead paint? Some of those symptoms were showed then, and I would like to know, I mean, if we have that data, maybe we could find some more information out on that. I just wanted to throw that out there. I'm done.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome point, thank you. Were there any other comments? President Elliott, I see your hand.
Yeah, again, I like to make sure that we're providing our parents and the community with the information that we have. And so that's why I ask you some very explicit questions with regard to what that assessment is and what it does. Because if our families have that information, they are able to help their children at home. So that's where a real partnership comes in. So not only do we just test them, but we explain to them what that testing is and what it will help, what it can help the students with and how they can be a part of that. Because, we talk about when our students come in to early education, but, we have a number of parents who are not familiar with that because they're believing that the schools will take care of it. And not so much to know what they can do at home. And of course, we have parents who are working and some working 2 or 3 jobs, but those that can do that, we got to get them the information. That's just critical, I think, in order for us to help to have a better, more effective relationship and better outcomes for us.
Yeah.
Thank you, President Elliott. I'm going to go to Superintendent Paluso, and then we'll go on and for the next section.
So, points well heard across the table, right? Because I think the grants will give you a variety of that, right? They'll give you the ones that need speech services, right, and the implementation immediately of speech. But it also talks about kids that can't hold scissors right, right? That could be taught early on at home, right? They didn't have the chance to hold the scissors, right? That, because we also don't want to go down a referral path unless absolutely necessary. But some of these skills that Brigance gives us are skills that we know, if addressed immediately, kids could catch up rather quickly. And I think we noticed that in our pre-K kids and kindergarten kids, when they're in schools, there's at one point in time where the light goes off and the speed starts to happen quicker than it was in the past. So, but that being said, there are some early identifiable areas where you could say you could use services to support those students before they get referral for special education, right? If it's speech or some others. But there's other things that, like President Elliott just mentioned, that if we could educate our families that as you're coming into schools, how to hold a pair of scissors, how to hold a crayon, right? All of those will be assessed, you know, for readiness is also important too. So points well heard.
Thank you for that. And so what I'm hearing you say also is that, so in extreme cases, it may be a referral. It may be some form of intervention. And in other cases, it could be as simple as the classroom teacher recognizing this child needs to be grouped here, and these children, we can work on their motor skills, and something that can be rectified within the classroom setting
Yeah.
on some levels,
Yeah,
depending.
especially
Okay.
social emotional skills and interacting and play and, right, that we do a lot in our pre-K 3 and 4 that doesn't necessarily hit the curriculum in kinder, right? And so we have to go back and kind of backfill.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, moving forward, the next assessment, last links, really refers to English language learners. This assessment is given for speaking and listening only. That we have 4 modalities: speaking, listening, reading, writing. Reading and writing is assessed in other assessments. This was part of the accountability for the recommendation from the academic plan, that we have another assessment. We also have other, like I said, comprehensive assessments for English language acquisition. So this is a pretty short assessment. The speaking takes about 15 minutes. Listening takes about 30 to 35 minutes. So it's not a very lengthy assessment. It is given to grades 1 through 12. Next page gives us a little more. It aligns with the New York State New Language Arts Progressions for bilingual students. It provides detailed information regarding students' growth between annual administration of the New York State English as a Second Language Achievement Test, or known as NYSA slot. It pinpoints specific areas for targeted intervention or instruction, and supports English language proficiency and ESA indicators every student succeeds at. It's used by CSD for second language acquisition only. So this is the next page, just gives us the windows. It was given October 3rd to October 28th to 6,608 students. Oh, those were the tests given, 2 per student. Subtests given 5,303, and it was an 80.3% participation rate. The next window is coming up very soon, so the data for that will be to be determined. If we look on the next slide, you'll actually see where we fall as a district. I gotta put my glasses on. I believe the top line is grade 1, going down to grade 12. This is speaking, 1st through 12th grade. The darker colors, so the blue is a score of a 4, more proficient. The darker green is a score of a 3, the next level of proficiency, and where we really want people to be at minimal. And then light green is a 1, and the lightish yellow, is a 2, and the lightish yellow is a 1. So that is for the speaking assessment, 1st through 12th grade.
I have a question on that slide. So what do you think is happening where you see grades 5 through 8, where some of them are hitting the proficient level? That's the middle school level. So prior to middle school, we're not necessarily seeing that, and then after middle school, we're no longer seeing the proficient level.
I'd have to dig in more with the executive director of bilingual education and world languages to really dig into that, to be able to answer that effectively. But I'll be happy to come back to it. I don't want to make any assumptions. It could be that the students are changing. It could be that there's new entrants, newcomers, right? There could be a multitude of things.
Yeah, I was wondering if it was entry
Yeah.
points or something. Okay, thank you.
But you'll get that information though, right?
I will, yes.
Thank you.
And then the next one is listening. We have a little less proficiency there, more blue, which is nice to see, so more students scoring at a level 4. And then level 3s are that dark green again, level 2s are light green, and the yellows are a light yellow color. And that's grades 1st through 12th. So the assessment for us, the score takes a little bit of time for the district to receive back the full comprehensive report. That's why you're getting the report now, even though they took it in the fall. It takes a little bit of time for us to receive it. However, there's an individual report that teachers get immediately, and that's what's on the next slide. It looks at the proficiency level by domain for speaking and listening. Teachers get this immediately alongside an expanded proficiency level descriptor. So that they know exactly what students are working on and need to work harder on. And then they find students who fall within the same proficiency level and group together for tier 2 interventions. So that's the good news, that we have immediate information there. The next slide moves us into professional learning. So if there's any
Okay.
questions on last
Yeah, let's pause for a moment. Any questions on some of the data? Commissioner Patterson?
Yeah, just request, for me, I wear contacts and glasses, so the data screens are really blurry for me to read,
Okay.
kind of like bothers my eyes. Everything else is clear on here. Is there any way in the future maybe we could make that a little bit clearer so, I can't even ask any questions because I really can't see it. It's blurry for me, so thank you if you could.
Yeah, I
Make it a
think
little
we
bit
can
clearer.
divide them up into more slides and make it larger, so thank you for that.
I see your light.
Oh, no.
Okay. Are there any other, Commissioner? Okay, no other questions. So we're going to go into the professional learning portion of this presentation. Before we do that, I do want to acknowledge on our Zoom this evening, we do have Mr. Jaime Alicia on the Zoom, which is our RCSD financial consultant. So I want to make sure that I do acknowledge his presence this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a highlight here, our Director of Library and Media Services, Dr. Colleen Sadowski, is presenting. She has 3 different presentations, January 23rd through the 26th at the Future of Educational Technology Conference. That is a national conference, so this is a big to-do, and I just wanted to share that information. So congratulations to her for submitting and also being called to present. The next slide moves us into attendance. We've talked a little bit about attendance. I know you get a weekly attendance report for average daily attendance and chronic absenteeism. We have been working alongside our new director, Carly Jelsma, and really trying to figure out next steps, right? We get a lot of information on community learning walks too around what schools are doing and what we need to continue to move forward. So she's doing the same tiered approach that we're doing as part of our MTSS process. Attendance is part of that on the one side of that. And really also looking to tier schools that might need more support. If the attendance team might need more support in a certain school, they're getting a little bit more support. Also working on root cause analysis for certain schools and also certain students, and really starting to push into the part we've talked about before is how are we educating our families and the community on the importance of attendance. What's an excused attendance versus unexcused? How do we make sure our kids are in school every day and on time, even though we also want them to stay home if they're really sick, right? And so how do we help families really determine that and really build some education around that and some movement around helping all stakeholders understand the importance and how we want to continue to move forward to meet our targets in attendance. So the next page talks about interventions and preventions, tier 1. Just providing foundational supports. Every school has an attendance team. Most schools are meeting weekly, some are meeting bi-weekly. There's professional learning. Our homeschool assistants are working on this, and also the Office of Parent Engagement. So as an overarching universal, what we do for all students happens in tier 1. Tier 2, every school's attendance team. really does a data-driven practice and looks and analyzes root causes. They try to figure out how to improve students' attendance and how to help support families, right? Because very often students are not coming to school. They don't have the option to come or not come. It's how they're getting there, right? So someone else is in control of whether they show up or not. And then updating attendance manual and academic standards and assessment procedures, all of that is helping both the attendance team and the new director really align with what we've been doing as a district in attendance and what we need to do better and or continue to do well. And the Google Drive organization. So they have been working in that. So they're supporting with that Google Drive organization, supporting those school teams. In Tier 3, they have done some winter attendance blitz in 9 schools. They've done those. I understand that's something that our CST has done in the past, and the attendance team has been out to do some of that work this year, and they're continuing that work. They don't have a large team, so it's a lot of push out into buildings. And then they're evaluating all schools by network for chronic absenteeism, and then state performance indicators and completing root cause analysis. So they're also going to tier, as they're supporting as a district level attendance group, they're tiering the schools in how they're supporting schools as well from the attendance team. And then the next page just shows us the red line is this year, 22-23. The blue line is last year's. So we actually have some improvement, especially right now where we're sitting in January. And hopefully we continue to improve that and continue to make sure we get students on time in school. And folks can get off the chronic absenteeism list, right? And so I think that's important to know. If we had ourselves there earlier in the year, it is a percentage of school days. So if I miss 10 days, I'm there until I get to a point where that 10 days is no longer 10% of the school days. So there is a way to come to school every day and get yourself off the list, especially if we stay healthy, right? And so and pairing with the family and community engagement, it's also like what are other strategies to help us keep healthy? It's hard, right? Like a lot of things are going around right now. I too have 3 children, and they've all had something every other day, it seems like. But yes, we still want students to get there as long as they can and they don't have some sort of infection. And that's it on attendance, and then that wraps up my presentation. So any other questions?
Just one question. When you say 10%, they could get off the chronic absenteeism list, that's the student? Is that the school as well?
Yeah, so the school is put in an indicator for state accountability based on the percentage of chronic absenteeism students within their building. But student by student, right, when we're looking at this, let's say at school 2, just because that school was brought up earlier, my name's on the list, I'm a 4th grader, and I'm chronically absent because I've missed 10 days. If I come to school every day for the rest of the year, I, at some point, will no longer be chronically truant because I won't be absent 10% or more of the time, right? That will change. Now, if I've already missed 10% of 180 days, I can't recoup that, right? Like I'm still going to be chronically absent even if I come every day. So if I've already missed 18 days, let's put it that way, right? So 18 days will make me chronically truant out of 180 days, that's 10%. But it's a percentage, right? It's a percentage of school days and how much you're present amongst the school day. So that's what I refer to. For a school, they get state accountability based on their end attendance and end chronic absenteeism of the end of the school year. So every student who's not chronically absent will help them, right?
Okay, so now the only reason is I know that I know a couple schools that have felt that the chronic absenteeism was what took them over the edge into receivership. And so I was just curious to see.
It's good for them to know their indicators, right, of how they might fall into receivership or get out. And it's always good to track that data with everybody in their school community, all their stakeholders, and keep their eyeballs on how to help improve it, right? And work with every single student, with every single family to do that work. That's the only way to improve and get better.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Adams. Are there any other questions? I see you, President Out.
Yeah, I'm just thinking on that legislative level, and I'll direct this to you, Commissioner Adams. I'm wondering if there's some conversation that we can have with regard to, because we know that there are a number of students who start, but they may go back to their home. You know, they may go back to Puerto Rico for a period of time. I'm wondering if this warrants some conversation on the state level. Now, I don't know what that looks like. I think that conversation will have to start with us. But, you know, as opposed to us being held accountable for something that's out of our control, you know, I'm wondering if there's some way that the state is able to revise some of that. And I'm sort of just thinking out loud at this point. But, you know, there are things that we can't control, and we also can't control when, you know, students are out sick. And so, you know, I'm just offering that as a conversation right now to have, you know, because we're getting, you know, held accountable for things that are out of our control. And I just think that we have to have some conversations around that.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move forward into some updates around our academic and fiscal plan. And that's going to be Dr. Kathleen Black, Deputy.
The one and only.
Good evening, Commissioners. I am coming to you to give you academic and financial plan updates, specifically focused on our status of violations. I just want to highlight in front of you, you should have a blue memo document that outlines the violations as an artifact that will be going to the state tonight that is in support of this presentation. And so as we start every presentation, our guiding principles, which you've already heard, but it's always important to rename them so you get the buzzwords. Every child deserves to engage with grade level content every day. Our students must engage with high quality, culturally responsive experiences where they are affirmed, seen, and valued. And we have an obligation to provide an equitable experience to every student across the district that is not dependent on where they live or where they go to school. It is important to notate these in context of the academic and financial plan, because if we implement those recommendations well, we get closer to our guiding principles. So statutory authority, I just wanted to remind us around how we got here. Chapter 56 of the law of 2020 requires the commissioner to appoint a state monitor to the RCSD to provide oversight, guidance, and technical assistance related to the academic and fiscal policies, practices, programs, and decisions of the district, the Board of Education, and the superintendent. One provision of the engagement with the monitor is the articulation of both an academic and financial plan. So just as a reminder, the academic plan has a total of 107 recommendations, 24 which are current, 46 which have been modified, 14 which have been removed, and 23 which are new. This is the status of our current academic plan. Please be reminded that we are in year 2 of a 3-year academic plan that has been modified as time has gone on. This is representative of our 22-23 academic plan. Financial plan, same configuration. We have 69 recommendations, 23 which are current, 25 which have been modified, 14 which have been removed, and 7 which are new. So these two slides represent the current condition of the total financial and academic plan, with recommendations that have been, again, current, modified, removed, and/or new. The reporting structure. We thought it was important to share with you all how we report on the recommendations which may result in potential violation. Every quarter, we're required to submit a written report and meet with our monitor to the state. To date, we've submitted 9 quarterly reports. And so if you figure out this is our 3rd year of the academic and financial plan, we've already submitted 9 quarterly reports. We also have checkpoint meetings with members of NYSED team, and that could be from any office and as well as with Dr. Jallo. And so in between our quarterly reporting, if something should show up, or if there's additional questions, or we need technical assistance, we're able to have checkpoint meetings. And then finally, we produce an annual report. And so to date, we've produced 2 annual reports. This is a nice place to note that with our 9 quarterly reports and our 2 annual reports, the formats have not been the same. And so between negotiating this with the district, the monitor, the state, we are ever evolving our format. So if you're looking at a document today, it may look different than a quarterly report from the past. Still same academic and financial report, but the format may be different. Additional information. So we're going to move into the parts that we're focusing on this evening. So the district has already received preliminary notification of ongoing violations from the 21-22 school year and potential violations for the 22-23 school year. We have actively collaborated with Dr. Jallo, our monitor, to identify opportunities for us to remedy immediately and or modify recommendations. And the updated district response back to the state is due this evening, and that's what you have a draft of. Just a bit about modifications. So modifications are in lieu of or before a violation. A modification is an opportunity for us, the district or the Board of Education, to solicit or petition the state monitor to shift or adjust a recommendation. Modifications typically seek to mitigate a violation, so we know we're on the road to potential violations, we submit a modification, or we address advanced knowledge that a recommendation is not timely, aligned, or achievable in its current state. We've submitted a number of recommendations for modification which have been accepted by the monitor. We wanted to notate the process of modification. And modifications are typically requested for timeline, so there's a date change that we have to have. The evidence that the monitor has articulated may be different than the evidence that we're proposing, and our content, we just have to shift what's in the recommendation altogether to better meet the needs of the organization and to meet the aims of the recommendation. There are two types of violations we're engaging with this evening. There are current violations. A current violation is representative of a violation that we've already received. So we got an official violations letter for 21-22 back in July. Those are the current violations. And then we have potential violations, and those are potential recommendations that our state monitor has submitted to the Board of Education and the Commissioner to be classified as violations officially. So we have two sets happening right now. We have an official set of current violations that we're working to remedy, and we have a set of potential violations that have been submitted that are still under consideration, hence your memo that you have in front of you. So the academic plan. So a total of the recommendations and violations, we have 5 current violations with 2 that have already been remedied, and we have 2 pending violations in the academic plan. Out of our total of 107, with 24 being current, 46 being modified, 14 being removed, and 23 being new. What's important to notate, and so for this particular screen, this is a list of the academic plan violations, both current and potential. And if you follow along with me, I'll walk you through. So academic plan table 9, recommendation number 28, you'll notice is in green. That is a remedied recommendation, which means that when we got it as a violation back in 21-22, we recovered and remedied it. The same is true for academic plan, table 13, recommendation number 11. That is a remedied recommendation. The 2 on top, academic plan, table 9, recommendation 5, and table 9, recommendation number 16, are going to be submitted as potential violations. So those are your new ones that Dr. Jallo is submitting to the Commissioner for potential consideration. When you collaborate all of these things together, that means that we have 5 active and current violations that we're working to address. And that is what's on your memo in terms of the academic plan violations. And what you have on your memo is the violation and specific remedies and strategies and responses to each violation from the administration. We'll follow the same format for the financial plan. The financial plan has 3 current violations, with 1 that has already been remedied, and 3 pending violations. Out of a total of 69 total recommendations, with 23 being current, 25 being modified, 14 being removed, and 7 being new. We'll follow the same format for the active. So you'll see financial plan, table number 7. Recommendation number 5 is the remedied financial plan recommendation. You'll see financial plan, table 4. Recommendation 4 is a potential new violation. Financial plan table 5, recommendation 12 is also a potential new violation. And financial plan table 9, recommendation number 5 is also a potential new violation. When you put those together from current and potential new, We potentially have 5 active and current violations the district has to respond to. Also indicated in your blue memo in terms of the violation, the language of the recommendation, the violation, and the specific evidence we're offering to the New York State Commissioner as support for our recommendations. So I'll pause there. That was a high overview. That was a lot. And then I'll put the question slide up and prepare.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner Dr. Kathleen Black, for that. I'm going to open up at this time to commissioners with any questions. Yes, President Elliott?
Yeah, I just, we seem to be moving in the right direction, and so are those and I think I may have mentioned this, I'll ask this earlier, are these at least for right now, the only violations out of the number of recommendations that we had? It looks like they're either we've achieved those recommendations or they're underway, and you talked a little bit about, there are other recommendations within a recommendation, but, how do we feel about where we are at this point, given that there may be, and I'm hoping not, and maybe you can answer this in some way, any new recommendations that may come about?
So I think collectively we feel like we're in a pretty good space to start to really hammer through the collection of recommendations. Oftentimes what we notice is that things build on each other. So if you don't do this thing over here, it's very hard to do this thing over here. And so for our recommendations that are violations right now in this plan, 3 of them have one artifact attached to them, which is the course catalog, which we've been talking about for as long as I've been standing up here. Right, so if we remedy the course catalog, we produce something that both satisfies the expectation of Dr. Jallo and is able to be utilized by our community to do the work, we satisfy 3 of the violations, technically. And we probably satisfy 4 or 5 other academic indicators. So it's a motion of getting things moving in motion. We had a lot of work to do and still have a lot of work to do to build the systems and structures to make the stuff feel seamless. And so I feel very encouraged about the work that our team is able to do to rally around the collection of recommendations, both on the academic plan and on the financial plan.
And, excuse me, I do want to say, if in the document that I submitted to you that you have here that is going to the commissioner today, it's also to say that these violations we haven't ignored, right? There's been work done on all of this, right? The team has worked hard to move it. We may not have moved at the pace that Dr. Jallo wanted us to do, but there's a lot of lift going on here. And so we wanted to make sure that they knew that we're just not ignoring the violation, that it's not something that we're not paying attention to. We are working towards it, and that's a lot of the information we put in our explanation. There are a few of these that we're asking for them to take a look at very closely before they make it an actual violation.
I will also note that Dr. Jallo has been a willing and able partner in this last iteration to talk to us in a much different way than before about how we can address some of the things for modification and remedy. And so different than just putting things on paper, which is where we were, now when we put things for implementation and change practice, what's the evidence of that look like? And those come from the conversations and the quick checks with the monitor. So I do think we're positioned to do a lot of good work to kind of close some of the on-paper gaps of it to then put it into implementation in terms of what's happening in classrooms and in buildings.
Thank you for that. And so with that, I think I want to just check for understanding. And so what I'm getting is these violations or potential violations are being submitted. They're going to be assessed. They'll be determined viable or not. And then from here, we go into action planning and a timeline of this is the progress monitoring that we're going to do on these violations. And so when would we expect to maybe enter into that? And I know this would be a guesstimate because we still have to hear back before we know exactly what we're looking at, but a guesstimate on when we would start monitoring.
So regardless of violation, non-violation, right, we have quarterly reports we have to provide to the state to show our progress towards all of the recommendations. We've just received our newest guidance in terms of how we should be reporting out on this one, and what is due February 15th. So the board will see that before going to the state ed, and then we could share that and report out on the the whole academic and financial plan progress, but know that, you know, what Dr. Black just put up here was the 109 and then the 69, but within there, there's multiple levels of that recommendation. Overall, there's about 200 plus of them that we're collecting evidence for and reporting out on. So we could do a level, a high level, or some other time, dedicate some time just to that, because it is extensive in what it is. But we could also post that for people to see, and is posted on the state website in terms of what our progress is.
Thank you so much. At this time, I'm going to ask one last round. First and foremost, Dr. Black, did you have anything else that you needed to touch on, or?
No, just if we review the memo document around the recommendations, the potential violations and our remedies, and if there are any questions, we are more than happy to come back during another iteration of ESA to expound, especially around specific efforts. And we are very close to having a course catalog that everybody loves and enjoys.
I can't wait.
We'll be happy to come back and report out.
Awesome, thank you so very much. And as from there, do any other commissioners have any questions, comments? So, with that said, or not said, I think that concludes this evening's Equity and Student Achievement Committee of the Whole. Note that it is 6:29. I don't know if I've made any personal records, but I'm trying to get on there. So, we're going to close this evening. Yes, and we do have a survey, so please, and Commissioner Powell, you've made your mark too. So if we can just take a moment to complete the board survey at this time, and then we'll move on from there. I'm going to turn
I'm not giving
the
you that,
mic over to you,
Commissioner.
President Elliott. I apologize. I did not formally request a motion to adjourn the meeting, so at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion. Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The meeting is now officially adjourned.
At 6:28 p.m.
When you were talking. Your words.
My phone does that. It starts picking up like if you're giving it a command. That is too funny. No, I'm telling you. I'm like, huh? I'm like 6 to 8 weeks. Man, we've been waiting since August of last year when we went to the school open house. And I was like, he gonna need speech. But he has picked up and progressed a lot since he started school, so I do agree with that.
So why didn't you put him over at 25? Because they got that great program over there.
It was on our list, but my daughter has to be able to walk with the babies if I'm not able to be there. There's an emergency, and she is half a mile from school too. She's on Flint off Jefferson. So she just
Good evening. This is a special meeting to approve resolutions, and so I'm going to convene this meeting for the consideration of resolutions. There are no speakers or comments to be made for this meeting, and so the board is okay with us bundling many of these all of these are human resource resolutions, and so I'm going to ask for a motion for
So moved.
Resolution 362 through 372. Moved by Commissioner Malloy, right?
Second.
And seconded by Vice President LeBron. Any questions or comments relating to those resolutions? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, and nothing else on the agenda. There's no need for executive session for this evening, and so I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Is there a second? Moved by Commissioner Malloy, seconded by Vice President LeBron. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? See, that's how you do it quick.
Yeah.